So tonight I am going to focus on blending the fundamentals of Pilates that you're working on at the moment on the platform. Now, I know you're all going to be at different stages of where you're at with that. So some of you might be still working on week 1, others might be off at week 4. So really what I want to do tonight is I wanted to touch base with you guys just to keep you connected, because sometimes when you're on a self-guided platform and self-motivated, you can find it hard to keep that motivation, and maybe it gets a little bit discontinued. So that was the reason for connecting with you after a couple of weeks, so it can motivate you to get back on track again and get a routine going if you haven't got one going already. And I've had some questions tonight which I'm going to address. So one of them was about tight hips. So how to release the hip socket if the hips are really tight. So stretching just in that area is not going to release the hips by itself. So you need to create some balance through the pelvis, and that involves working into the glutes as well. So not only are we going to release through the hips, we need to create stability into the glutes to maintain the neutral pelvis. Otherwise, what happens is the pelvis keeps tipping forward, and then the hip flexors have the advantage of tightening again. So a lot of that is about placement of pelvis. And as you know, one of the principles of Pilates is finding that neutral pelvis. The other question that I want to focus on as well tonight is what to do with wrists. If you have 1, weakness in your wrist, or 2, arthritis in the wrist. So with weakness in the wrist, we have a little bit more room to play with because we're focusing on strengthening that joint, and there'll be some nights where you'll be able to do a lot of work, and then maybe others they just need a rest. With arthritis, it's a different topic because you are going to have inflammation into the wrist joint with arthritis. So we need to modify the exercises when we're loading into wrist joints. So I'm going to show you some ways of how you can do that as well tonight. So that will support you going forward. So to start with, we are going to lie on our backs, and we're going to find our neutral. So to lie on our backs, we have 2 ways of coming down. We can roll onto our side if we're supporting our back, and then come into neutral this way. Or if you're feeling strong, you've no issues through your back, bring the hands to the back of your thighs, and then just roll yourself down so you're lying onto your back in neutral. So draw the heels a little bit closer to your thighs, and to find that neutral position, we're going to press our low back into the mat as if we're squashing a blueberry. Then we're going to gently arch the back away from the mat. And now we fall somewhere in the center of those 2 points. So we want to find that neutral arch to make our core work as effectively and efficiently as we can. From here, maintaining neutral, we're reaching our arms to the sky. We're going to breathe in, reach the fingers to the ceiling, stretching the back of your shoulders. And then exhale, draw your shoulder blades down onto the mat. So it's an inhale as we reach the arms high to the sky. And then we exhale, draw your shoulder blades down. And for those of you that maybe have been working late or can't do the full class tonight, I'm going to add the recording of this class onto the platform. So you'll have it in your curriculum in the Fundamentals of Pilates course, so you can watch it whenever you want. So drawing those shoulder blades down, we're activating the muscles in between your shoulder blades. This is really good if you've been sitting at a desk today, and often when we're working from home, we tend to move around. So we don't always stay in the one chair, and that can sometimes affect our posture then again. So this movement here just helps to reset that upper posture, and in turn that supports the wrist joint as well. So whether it's weakness to the wrist or arthritis to the wrist, The more posturally aligned we are through the upper body, the more strength we're using from the upper body. We're going to do one more of these. Inhale to reach, and exhale, draw the shoulder blades onto the mat. Now float your hands down by your side, and we're going to create a little bit of movement through our pelvis. You're going to roll the low back to the mat as if you're pulling both of your hip bones up towards your lower ribs. And then we slowly release as if we drop our tailbone down. So it's exhale, hip bones to lower ribs, and then press away, dropping the tailbone down. So it's kind of almost like a rocking movement through the pelvis. And we want to keep that rocking or that movement through the pelvis consistent on the right and left side. So you don't want to feel that you're lifting to one side. Think about both hip bones moving equally towards the ribs and then releasing away. So we'll do 4 more of these. Exhale, squash your blue ring. Inhale, slowly release. Upper body's nice and relaxed. Drop back. And slowly release. We're going to do 2 more of these. Rocking back. And releasing. And final one, draw it back. Inhale, return to neutral. Make sure you're maintaining a neutral position. Take one leg into tabletop for me. Now exhale, extend that leg out as long as you can. And inhale, come back to the tabletop. As you're pressing the leg out long, you don't have to point your toes. You can keep your foot quite relaxed, because that will prevent any arching or cramping through your foot. So as the leg goes long, you're thinking of a gentle connection with the tummy as if you're tightening the belt. That maintains that neutral position, that little arc underneath your low back. A tip to maintain neutral, you could pop your hand underneath your low back. So you're using your hand as a cue or a sensor to see that you're not moving or arching into the back. We're going to do 2 more. Exhale, go long. Inhale, come to center. And 1 more. Press it long. And come to the center. And lower that foot to the floor. Now we're going to switch sides. Take the second leg to tabletop. Extend that leg long. And back into your tabletop again. Pressing long. And back to tabletop. And one thing you want to notice in your tabletop, or just be aware of, make sure that the knee is a 90-degree angle. So often you'll find the toes are too high. So we want to make sure it's a 90-degree angle. And we want to keep the knee in line with our hip bone or in front of our waistband. So don't have the knee hugging in towards your nose. You're keeping it perpendicular to the floor. And that alignment is the most efficient alignment that challenges our core muscle. So we're going to go for another 3. Exhale, press long. And if you feel happy with your neutral spine, you can take away that supporting hand there. And 1 more. And back to center. Lower that foot to the floor. Let's take the heels closer to our thighs now and do some mobility through our spine. We're going to breathe in as we roll the low back to the mat. Exhale, peel the spine up, lifting the hips high. Take an inhale on the top, and then soften through the breastbone as you lower through the vertebrae, bit by bit by bit, and let the pelvis release out of the bottom, finding your neutral when you come back to that base. Take an inhale. Exhale, roll the low back, peel the spine high. Inhale on the top, and then exhale, slowly release everything back into the floor. So this is a mobility move, so it's mobilizing our vertebrae, but it's also creating stability to the pelvis. So this is a really good exercise for those that were asking about hip mobility. So while we're opening up the front of the hips, we're also training the butt muscles to stabilize and bring the pelvis into a neutral. So that's a really important thread in the story of hip release. Make sure, guys, when you come to the bottom that you return and you have enough space for your blueberry. So we don't want to stay stuck with our low back into the mat. So we're rolling back, we're peeling the spine as if the spine is sellotape. We're peeling it from the floor, watching our knees don't roll out to the side. Take a breath and then gently release back down. One by one, dropping the hip bones out. We're going to do 2 more. Breathe in. Pushing the big toe mats into the floor as we lift to peel. Hold on the top. And release and lower. Last one, take a breath. Exhale, lift to rise. Breathe it in. And slowly lower everything back into the floor. Release the pelvis out. And we're going to come back to that movement and version of that movement in a while. For the moment, you're going to turn onto your side. Draw your knees up towards your chest, or not up to your chest, but just heels in line with your butt, and your knees are kind of out in front of the mat. You're going to take your top arm up to the sky. I'm going to change this slightly to what you're working with on your course at the moment on the platform. So you're going to bring your fingertips just lightly to the top of above your ear. And now we're going to exhale, draw the elbow back, allowing the ribs to move back in space. My bottom hand is supporting my head. Take a breath in. And then on the exhale, I'm going to close the elbows towards each other. You could let that elbow rest off the floor if you want, or it can just rest into space. So breathe in. Exhale, open the elbow back, support the head. Inhale, come back through. So I'm getting some spinal rotation. Exhale to open. Inhale to the center. So I'm still keeping my hip bones parallel to the floor that's in front of me, or to the wall that's in front of me. Exhale, open. And inhale through center. And again, one more. Exhale, open back. Inhale, come back to your center. From here, we're going to turn around. You guys could literally turn around. I'll come to this end so you can still see me. So we're going to do the opposite side now. Support that bottom head. Exhale as you open. Inhale as we close. So we're thinking of the ribs moving back in space, the front of the chest wall opening out, and then coming back through. So we're warming up the spine, the spinal muscles. And we're going to go for 2 more. And last one. Open out. And then come back into your center. From here, we're going to turn over onto our back again. And we're going to find our neutral spine. So find the space underneath your low back. You're going to take one leg into tabletop. Imprint by pushing your low back into the mat as if you were squashing your blueberry. And take your second leg into tabletop. Now I'm going to offer you 2 choices here. You're either going to stay with the imprinted spine where you have squashed your blueberry, but you haven't burst the juice out of the blueberry. You're just gently pressing down on it. So there's not a lot of load in the low back. It's contacting the mat, yes, but there's not a huge force going on through there. So I'm connecting from my core to try and maintain that imprinted tabletop and hold the weight of my legs. I can challenge my body more, and I can move the knees about 1 centimeter further away from my nose, and that creates the arc, the neutral arch in my low back. It also creates more demand to my core. And again, I'm going to maintain this position by softening through my upper body, my head, neck, and shoulders. I'm connecting with my belt 1 notch in. And whether I'm in this position neutral or I'm in the imprinted where I'm gently pressed back, I'm going to stay here for 5 breaths in and out. If it's too strong for anyone, you do this exact same move with one leg in tabletop. So we're inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. Really concentrating on that upper body soft. You can squeeze the inner thighs to support this movement here. At any time, if you feel it in your back, come out of this movement sooner. You can hug the knees to your chest or take the legs down one by one. So ensure that it's one by one as you move out of a double leg hold. So we'll take one more breath, breathe it in. And on the exhale, I like to hug my knees in after that. Just get a nice gentle stretch in through the back muscles. From here, we're going to pop our feet back onto the floor. We're going to draw the heels a little closer to the thighs, bring the hands down by our sides. And then from there, we're going to lift the hips up again like we did earlier. And this time we're going to try and hold the hips up. We're thinking about the front pockets pressing up towards the sky and that activity into our butt muscles. We can bring our elbows onto the floor here as well with the fingers pointing to the sky. You're going to press your elbows into the floor as you lift your hips up. So you're thinking about your glute engaged and you're thinking about those elbows pressing down in towards the floor. So we're breathing in for 5, for 4, for 3, really opening up those front pockets. And last one, and then slowly lower the spine back down into the floor, relaxing your hands down by your side. From here, we're going to turn around and we're going to come to a square box position. Now this square box position, bringing the heels in line with the knees, can be challenging with weakness through the wrist like we talked about in the beginning of class. So one option is to take 2 books. So you want a little bit of depth through the books and place them at the top of your mat. And then bring your palms so that the kind of middle section of your palm comes over the edge of the book. So what we're doing here, when we have our hands down like this on the mat, there's a 90-degree angle at our wrist joint. When we take the book, or in the studio we have wedges, or you can even roll up the end of your mat to get some depth on it, and we roll the palm of the hand over that ledge. See how that changes the angle to the wrist joint. It's not as severe now. So we're not anymore at a 90-degree angle, so we're probably more at a 45-degree angle. So that in itself can reduce the load and the strain that's going into the wrist joint that can be coming from the carpal tunnel. So you could try that as an option. If your issue is coming from arthritis, opening the angle of the joint may not be the answer. So what you may need to do is come off the actual wrist joint. So to do that, come down onto your elbows. So you're in this position. You could keep those books and be a little bit higher and have the elbows on the books as well. So when we're in a square box position, whether we're down on our elbows or on our long arms, so come on the elbows if those wrists are bothering you. We're going to reach the right leg out long behind us. So the elbows is the same move. Then we're going to lift that back leg up and we're going to tap the toe to the floor. Lifting the back leg up and tapping the toe to the floor. So we're down on our elbows, lifting the back leg up and tapping the toes to the floor. Another option you could use here, if you prefer to be more elevated, if you have 2 yoga blocks, you could pop them underneath the elbows. So I'm going to give options because I know you guys all have different things at home. So you could be up on the 2 yoga blocks, or even 1, because I've only got 1 here at the moment, and then lifting and lowering. That just might mean be more comfortable, to be more elevated, that's an option. Or you could just get a couple of books there and build the books up so there's a bit of height in them. So here we're working into the glutes, into the back body as we lift and lower down. So we're going to go for another 3 here, 2, and 1 more. And then slowly draw that knee in. You can do a little drop back with the heels here, let the elbows rest down, maybe circle out through the wrists just to give them a little bit of a break. And then come forward either onto all fours or down onto your elbows. Extend one leg long and then lift that second leg up and lowering down. So as I'm lifting here, I'm aiming to keep my pelvis neutral. So I have my hip bones pointing towards the earth. So I'm square through my pelvis, whether I'm on my elbows or straight arms. So let's go for another 5 of these straight leg lifts. 4, 3, 2, and final one, lift up. Draw the knee in, drop the bum back into the heel, take a nice shell stretch there as you reach your arms long in front of you. We do time, okay? So we get a nice stretch through the back body. Then come up onto all fours, double up the mat if you need extra little bit of support or padding through your knee, like I do on my right side. And then step 1 foot out in front of you. Now you might want to hold onto a wall here when you get that front foot out in front, and that's absolutely fine. What our focus is that we're moving our hips forward. So my right leg is the one that's left behind. It's my right hip that I'm stretching, the front of my right hip. Now, you really want to focus on alignment here and get the pelvis in a nice neutral position here. So the way to do that is if you bring your right hand onto your right back pocket, if that's the leg that's behind you, whatever leg that is behind you. And you want to almost think about the back pocket, the base of the back pocket, pressing towards the end of the mat. If you feel that your hip is shifting out to the side, then tuck the hip in so that the back pocket points directly to the end of the mat. So that means that you're in a square box position and that you're supporting your back while stretching your hip. And then we can breathe in and out. The hands could remain on the floor as well. If that's more comfortable for you, that's fine too. So we're breathing in and out wherever we are. Think of rolling the shoulders back in space. That's easier when the hands are mounted on the knees. But if the hands are on the floor, roll those back in space. Or they're up here, or maybe you're holding onto a wall. But the emphasis is that the right hip is pressing forward as if you're opening or ironing out that front pocket. And we can take about 5 to 6 breaths in and out here to let that hip release through. Breathe for 3. Breathe for 2. And then breathe for 1. Now bring your hands to the floor to come out of it. Release the weight back onto your back knee and then slide that front foot back. And then we'll go to the other side. So the other side, we want to take the other leg out in front of you. Lean forward. So we're allowing this back hip to open out. Choose the position you're going to stay in. Hands on floor, hands on knee, or holding onto a wall or a chair. And then allow your body to soften into that. So with each inhale, you could think about pressing the front heel back to the end of the mat. And then with each exhale, you could think about softening towards the floor. Inhale, drive your front heel back. And then exhale, soften through the floor. So that root and rebound can really facilitate a relaxation through the hip muscles. So really important to keep the hips free. If you sit a lot, if you do a lot of running or cycling, those actions will create flexion or tightness through the front of the hip. So we'll take another 2 breaths. And don't worry what angle you're at. It doesn't have to match mine. So you might be here and be getting a huge stretch through the hip. And that's absolutely fine. You're working with your body. We'll take one more breath, breathe it in. And then on the exhale, bring your hands to the floor. Roll the weight back onto the back knee and drive that front foot back so both knees meet each other. Then we're going to turn around and we're going to come to a seated position here. So we're lengthening nice and tall through the spine. And that's important that we get this long spinal position. So we want to think of the tailbone pressed into the earth, the collarbone's opened. If you feel that you're rolled back and you can't get that length through the spine, you're going to allow your legs to be a little bit longer, having your heels pressed onto the mat and your toes to the sky. Hook your hands underneath the back of your knees and then use your hands to draw your chest closer to your knees so you can get a tall spine position. Inhale, sink through your low back and round the spine. Exhale, draw the belly in, tighten the belt and lengthen the spine tall. Breathe in as we roll back. And then exhale as we come tall. Breathing in. So we're getting mobility through the spine, but we're also challenging the core to draw the upper torso body weight back into that neutral. And you could disconnect the arms for more challenge. Exhale, come forward. As you breathe in, you could think about navigating a little bit further to the floor and then gently come nice and tall. And for some, maybe you have the hands disconnected as you roll back, but as you come forward, you need that extra little bit of help to find the tall spine. So just use the back of the thigh if that's the case. So we're inhaling to go back and exhaling to come tall. We're going to do two more. Breathe in, and you'll notice the pace of the class tonight is a little bit quicker than what we were doing in our February course. And that's because you have to give you a chance to kind of blend all of the fundamentals together so you get a fuller flow to the movement. We've got one more. Breathe in and then exhale. Lift yourself up. Okay, let's come on to our side now. So we're going to come down in a full sideline position and we support our head with our bottom arm, or you can get a cushion there if the arm isn't comfortable underneath your head. The legs are dead straight, so we haven't changed the angle of the legs. So it's like we're in a standing tall position in that super tall space. We're going to lift this top leg up now and then we lower to the floor. So I'm going to take an inhale as I come up and an exhale as I lower. Let's just keep the foot relaxed for the moment. Maybe think about the gentle connection through your tummy as if you're tightening your belt one notch. So we're starting to bring in those principles almost like autopilot for each exercise. You can think about the underside waist here, which is part of your core, your oblique muscle. Imagine there's a blueberry on that underside waist and you're trying to actively pull up and away from the side. So you're involving the oblique muscles. It's a lift up and an inhale and then a slow lower down. We're going to go for another 5. You start to feel this outer thigh muscle working now. 4. Inhale, exhale. Keep it going and know you're feeling challenged here in that thigh. One more, lift it up. Lower it down. Now stay here with this leg. Do small pulses for me. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the leg still in space. Just hold it, that isometric contraction, working all those muscles around the thigh for 5. Stay with me. 3, 2, 1. And rest that knee out in front. Maybe tap out through the top hip there if you're feeling that in the top thigh like I was. Now lift the bottom leg up for inner thigh connection and then lower it down. So really imagine as you're lifting that leg up, almost like you're pulling the leg through wet sand. So you're actively working the top inner thigh muscle here. It's an exhale as we rise and an inhale as we lower. So we've got 5 more. And 4. 3 more. 2. And last one, lift it up. And slowly lower it down. Good work. Okay, from here, turn onto your tummy now, face down. Separate your feet wide into a little V either side of the mat. Toenails are flat on the earth. Your elbows are wide as the mat here as well. Watch that your elbows aren't too high up here. So the elbows are almost in line with the brow line. So from here, we're going to press the hands into the earth. And we're going to inhale to lift the eye gaze to look out in front. And then exhale, soften to lower it down. So we breathe in to lift up, roll those shoulders back. And then exhale to soften down. And you shouldn't feel any impact on your wrists here, because I'm not deeply pressing into my hands. I could even keep my wrists off the floor and still be able to maintain this position. So don't feel that you have to really work into the wrist here on this move. So this is a back extension move, which is working the extensor muscles in the upper back and the middle back. So there's no impact on your wrists here. So we're going to go for 2 more. Inhale, elevate. And exhale, lower. And final one, inhale. And exhale to soften down. Then from here, you can simply turn onto your other side. I'm going to just swing around. And then we come back to the straight line position again. So super straight legs. And then we're going to lift the top leg up and lower it down. So it's an inhale as we rise that top leg up and then slowly lower it down again. Breathing in and lowering down. And like we were doing on the other side, we can try and connect to the underside muscle as we're raising the leg up and lowering down. Breathe in and lower. And how high we lift this leg is important. So we really only want to lift it about 45 degrees. So often in class, sometimes I will see people kind of lifting it super high. So because of the nature of our hip joint, when we bring the leg to here, the head of the femur is still sitting snugly into the hip socket. But when we pull it super high, that can actually create a bit of impact into the hip joint, which we don't need. So we want to support a healthy hip joint. So that's why it's important we're only coming up to about 45-degree angle here. So we're going to go for another 5, and you should be feeling that now into the outside of your thigh muscle. 5, 4, 3. So let's keep it going now. You're near the end. We're going to do our pulse and hold. Lift. Now come down quite low and do your small pulses up and down. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now just hold it. So we're just holding it there, getting that isometric connection through all the muscles, stabilizing the hip socket. Good for strength and endurance. Hold for 3 and 2 and 1. Well done. Rest that knee out in front of you. Let's go for the bottom leg lifting. So we want that inner thigh working here. And the hands here, that's out in front, that's quite lightly pressed. You could literally just have your fingertips or one fingertip on the floor. So again, if you're minding your wrist, the full palm on the floor is going to create that harsh angle at the wrist joint. So I would suggest just having the fingers lightly on the floor
in that case, or maybe you could even just have them by the side of the thigh so that you're not tempted to kind of push or dump weight into the wrists there. So we'll go for another 5 of these inner thigh lifts, and 4, 3, 2, and final 1, and lowering down. Excellent. Okay, before we go, I just want to show you how to do all fours swimming with your wrists again. So we're going to turn around and come on to all fours. So I'll just show you the full version first. So we're in this all fours position. We're going to slide one leg away and then take the opposite arm away and come back into center. And that might mean that the leg is sliding, or it might mean that the leg is elevated. But of course, that's a lot of impact on your wrist joint. So you could choose to get your block of books again, come onto the elbow. You only need it on one side because you're not resting on the other side, and then work from there. So we exhale opposites, come back to center, opposites, and come back to center. Of course, you want to be confident that you can do that move and that you're not going to kind of be falling and then impacting on the wrist and then insulting it even more if it's a bad day and it's quite inflamed. So just make sure that you have the ability to do that. The other option is, what you could do is you could slide the little finger along the mat so that you still have a little bit of protection there, that if you do fall, that it's not going to be a big impact onto the wrist joint. So that's another solution for when we're doing that all fours. So let's come into a shell stretch then to finish. You can take your knees out wide and then let your elbows drop and let your head either rest on the floor. You could fist the hands. You could use your yoga block here again. So whatever feels good for your body. And then we're going to stay here as we take 3 breaths in and out. And we want to think about the back body there. So really allowing the ribs to open as we breathe in. And then exhale, soften out. Breathe in. And soften. Let's do one more breath there. Breathe in. And soften. Then from there, you're going to reach your arms out lightly and just sweep the hands to one side, taking one hand on top of the other. Let the head melt, and then just feel that side body opening, that left side opening as you breathe in and out. Take one more breath. Slowly come to center, and then we'll switch to the other side, letting the head rest, and taking those 3 breaths in and out. And then slowly come back into your center and slowly release out, and you are all done. So well done, guys. So that just gives you a little bit of opportunity to have number 1, another exercise on your platform, another exercise class, and number 2 is just to kind of get a sense of the flow.